Let's go back to our top story, the disappearance and now alleged killing of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Sigurd Neubauer is a Middle East analyst and columnist. He joins us from Washington. Sigurd Neubauer, as far as you're concerned, are these Saudi denials looking increasingly weak or perfectly believable?
Let me first begin by stating that Jamal Khashoggi is a very close friend, and he was very popular here in the Washington policy community. And every time we would want to understand what was happening in the region and in Saudi Arabia in particular, me and myself and our colleagues would always go to him for advice and an interesting conversation. So these reports that we're seeing in the media are really hitting us on a personal level here in Washington. As to your question, we have just seen that the Saudi ambassador to the United States, Khalid bin Salman, and the brother of MBS returned to Riyadh yesterday for consultations. So things are looking extremely difficult right now for the U.S.-Saudi relationship because some credible answers as to what happened to Mr. Khashoggi has to be put forward. And so far, we have not seen anything other than some very grim rumors playing out in the media. And we all hope that they are, of course, not true, but we don't quite know as of yet.
Have the Saudis misread the potential consequences of this, specifically talking about this global conference that was scheduled to happen or is scheduled to happen in Jeddah? I noticed in the past 90 seconds or so, MSNBC are also saying we're not going to go. You've got people like Richard Branson, international known iconic figure of the world of business and also private space exploration, saying, no, there are questions to be asked here. It occurs to me there is a confluence coming together of pressure on the one hand from very, very powerful journalistic organizations combined with the U.S. Congress, in effect giving the U.S. President Donald Trump 4 months to start to do something about this.
That is absolutely correct. We're seeing that civil society organizations in the United States, big business, and even venture capital firms who had initially planned to participate in this conference are now all pulling out. And we also know that instrumental for the Saudi Vision 2030 would be foreign investment. So all of that could dry up if this crisis does not evolve and provide satisfactory answers. We're also seeing that the president is under extreme pressure domestically, both from Republicans and from Democrats to come up with an answer as to what happened. As of now, the answer to the solution lies in Turkey. We have seen some reports in the media this morning that the Turks have alleged that they have recordings, audio recordings and video recordings of what took place. So we can expect more drip leaks throughout the day, and that will definitely impact how the President of the United States will respond, and most likely what other organizations will put their investments and participation in the upcoming conference on freeze.
And when you talk about those drips, those leaks, we now are in not so very far away, perhaps, from this sort of triangulated investigation where you've got U.S. personnel, Saudi personnel, Turkish personnel, presumably going into the consulate building, trying to get into the consul general's building, trying to track down the 2 planes that left Turkey, trying to track down the diplomatic cars. Might we not see a Turkish authorities news conference? Might we see a 3-way news conference? And if we do, what does that tell us about Mr. Erdogan's handling of this?
I think Mr. Erdogan has handled this case extraordinarily well, given the fact that prior to this crisis, the U.S.-Turkish relationship was deteriorating, and we have seen just yesterday reports that an abducted Christian pastor, Mr. Brunson, will be returning to the United States, and that had been a condition for normalizing the U.S.-Turkish relationship. So we're seeing that the U.S.-Turkish relationship is already accelerating towards normalization. The question is, what does this triangular relationship between Saudi, United States, and Turkey, how can they square the impossible and, on one hand, find satisfactory answers to the public and to everyone who are sitting on needles here, waiting to hear what happened to our friend and colleague, and on the other hand, try to understand what this means for the geopolitical landscape in a region that is already extraordinary, unstable, and I would even add dangerous.
I hear what you're saying about your friend and colleague. I hear what you're saying, of course, about how you would go to him, you would get his take on some story that was pertinent to this region. Everyone that we've been talking to over the past 10 days since this story broke has said the same thing. They've been saying that as far as the Crown Prince in Riyadh is concerned, we're learning about a different interpretation of who he is, and the US has to react accordingly to that. However, what does it tell us about Mr. Erdogan? Because there is certainly, surely, an irony here. Mr. Erdogan, in the immediate aftermath of the 2016 failed coup, locked up journalists. He went after people who called themselves the voice of freedom. Is there a certain double standard here? Granted, Mr. Erdogan never did anything very, very bad inside a consulate, inside a third country, yes? But he does not like himself voices of, quotes, dissent, although your friend, Mr. Khashoggi, never styled himself as being the voice of dissent.
Well, I think what is different this time is that all the evidence are very clear. It could have been if the Saudis indeed are responsible for his killing. If that proves to be the case, and that's a big if because we haven't seen any evidence as of yet. But if that is the case, it could have been based precisely on the calculation that the Turkish president does not have a lot of credibility when it comes to press freedom, at least in the West. So that might have been part of the calculus taken by the Saudis. But at this point, it is, of course, only speculative.
OK, we have to leave it there. Sigurd Neubauer, thanks so much.
Thank you.